So Ismael Barroso manages to knock out OHARA Davies in the first round of their fight. I did not see this coming. So going into this fight, I just thought OHARA Davies, on paper, he was supposed to win this fight. On paper, he had literally everything going for him. He was younger. Obviously, he's as he's younger, he's supposed to be more fresh. He's supposed to be more like obviously Barroso's a fighter that's supposed to be past his prime. Like obviously he's coming for the WBA belt. He wants that fight with Rolly Romero. So it looked like going into this, literally OHARA Davies literally had everything going for him. He had a win over Lewis Ritson. Like it just seemed like it was his time to shine, right? So he goes into the ring, and I'll be honest with you, before the fight, when they were doing the announcement, when he was talking out his name and talking about everything that was going on in terms of like the ring introduction, OHARA Davies just did not look like he wanted to be there. Just his whole body language just looked off. Like he did not look like he wanted to be there. Literally, even before the bell sounded and he was supposed to go into the middle of the ring to meet Barroso for the start of the first round, he just, his whole body language, his whole demeanor, he just looked like he wanted to be elsewhere. He did not want to be there. And then when the fight actually started, literally the thing that shocked me was OHARA Davies is a fighter ostensibly that's like 11 years younger than Barroso. So just to put it into context, Barroso, his age, they say he's 40 years old. He looks 20 years older. He literally looks like he's 60. But just to put it into context, he's 40 years old. OHARA Davies is 31. So he's 9 years younger? I actually think Barroso, let's just be fair about this, he's probably 45. Even though it says on the thing that he's 40, I don't think he's 40. I think he's 45, maybe pushing to 50. So to put it into perspective, OHARA Davies was in there with a guy that was 15 years older than him, out of his prime. But when they were in the middle of the ring just before the knockdown happened, the first knockdown, it literally looked like the hand speed wasn't that different, and I found that alarming. I was like, you're going in there against a guy that's 15 years older than you, has had all these wars. You're the fresher fighter. You've got all this motivation because you're trying to chase that world title against Rolly Romero, that world title fight, and potentially win a world title. And just looking at his hand speed in the ring, the hand speed differential was not that much. Like, it's not like Barroso's hand speed was way slower than OHARA Davies. They were on a similar level. And then I think he overreached with a right hand to the body, and Barroso just landed a left hook and just decked him. And when he dropped on him, like, as he got up, there was just a look of shock on his face. He was like, what the hell just hit me? And then when he got to the middle of the ring, his legs were just completely gone. And Barroso just wailed on him and managed to knock him out again. And then obviously the referee stopped the fight. And when I saw that, I was absolutely shocked. I did not see that coming. Now, when I saw him fight Rolly Romero, and I literally thought that fight was a robbery because the stoppage by Tony Weeks was ridiculous. I mean, it was way too premature. Like, the punches that Rolly Romero was hitting him with wasn't even hurting him. And obviously Tony Weeks went in there and literally stopped the fight. But now, like, just seeing what's happening, Barroso's manages ostensibly, like, he managed to drop Rolly Romero, and a lot of people thought he won that fight because that stoppage, he was outboxing Rolly before the stoppage happened, and the stoppage was seen as BS by most people. And now that he stopped OHARA Davies, this is incredible. I remember seeing Barroso when he fought Anthony Corolla, and I remember back in the day I was seeing this guy fight. He was a complete puncher, and even back then I was like, this guy's dangerous. He's a dangerous puncher. But for him to have this late summer bloom where later on in his career he's knocking out these opponents that ostensibly are like 10 to 15 years younger, and he's completely destroying them. I mean, I don't know what's happened to the light welterweight division. Is it just not? Is the talent pool gone? Because like for someone to be in their I think mid-40s, to be knocking out people that are way younger than him is incredible. And I know they say power's the last thing to go, but it was absolutely incredible to see him knock out OHARA Davies the way he did. OHARA Davies, like, as he took his gloves off, you could just tell the sense of rejection on his face. He was just like, he couldn't believe what happened to him. And from a psychological ploy, because OHARA Davies is a fighter who, generally speaking, I think he relies a lot on his confidence. I think this is going to be the toughest loss of his career to swallow, because to put it into context, when he lost to Josh Taylor, the Josh Taylor fight, it was a loss. It was humiliating, and it was the first loss of his career, both amateur and pro, because before that he was undefeated. But when he lost to Josh Taylor, at least he gave it a bit of a fight. Like, he landed his own shots against Josh Taylor, but then obviously Josh Taylor landed his and dropped him. His loss against Catterall, that was a nip and tuck affair, and he can in his own mind justify it and say, oh man, like, it was a competitive fight, I was still in there. And then when Catterall beat Josh Taylor, I know they robbed him on the cards, but let's be real, he did beat him. I mean, OHARA Davies can look at that and say, look, I gave this guy Jack Catterall a hell of a fight, and in reality I won that fight, and they just gave it to him. And look at what he done in his next fight. He beat Josh Taylor and took his titles. Even though he lost the fight and Josh Taylor managed to keep his titles, we both know he won that fight. But with this loss against Barroso, there's no excuses, because he's been literally in the first round, he got completely knocked out. And then on top of that, he lost to a guy that's 11 years or 15 years in reality older than him. And on top of that, like, it is such a humiliating loss, because he didn't even get set into the fight. Before the fight could even start, he literally got knocked out. He didn't even have an opportunity to land any punches. The first meaningful punch that he landed, which was the right hand to the body, he got countered and got brutally floored by Barroso. So because he's a fighter that depends a lot on his confidence, I feel like OHARA Davies is a fighter that if his confidence is not high, if he doesn't 100% believe in his power and his ability, his performance will diminish significantly. So I don't actually know where he goes from here. Like, he obviously needs to take a bit of time off. In terms of punishment in the fight, I don't think he took that much hard shot. He just got caught, and then that was it. That was all she wrote. The fight ended. It wasn't like it was a 10-round war where he took all this extensive damage. But I think this is going to hurt him more from a psychological perspective, because his other losses, at least he was somewhat competitive in there. With Josh Taylor, even Josh Taylor admitted that even though he doesn't like the guy, OHARA Davies does have power and he felt his punches. With Jack Catterall, that was a bit of a competitive fight. It was a very negative fight when neither fighter was landing any shots, but it was still a nip and tuck affair, and it's somewhat close. But with this, there's no closeness, there's no it's purely decisive. It's a purely decisive loss. He got completely humiliated. He got literally, and this was on the US stage as well. So this is, you could potentially say, even though the fight with Josh Taylor was big, it wasn't on the highest stage possible. It was on a stage where it wasn't like for a world title eliminator. It wasn't for like a huge title. We had a lot of coverage in the British media, but on the world stage, it didn't really have that much of a coverage. Like, people outside of the UK didn't really care about the fight. But with this fight with ISMAEL Barroso, it was on a much bigger stage, because you had Virgil Ortiz on the main card. It was eliminator for the WBA belt. You got the Rolly Romero waiting for the winner. You got Rolly Romero talking about fighting Ryan Garcia. So it was on a much bigger world stage. And for him to get splattered like that in Las Vegas, like, let's be real, Las Vegas is, obviously we've got the Saudis taking over and doing massive shows, but historically speaking, fighting in Las Vegas is like the dream of every young boxer coming up. So to go to the biggest stage and to get humiliated and completely destroyed like that, I think he's going to knock OHARA Davies' confidence, and it's up to him whether he can come back, whether he's got the tenacity to come back. But based on the way, I remember him speaking in interviews that he struggled to take the loss that he had against Josh Taylor, because he tried his best not to think about it. If that's how he reacted to that loss, and that was a humiliating loss, don't get it twisted. Like, a lot of people said he quit, and especially Tyron Booth, he said he quit. But like, this loss is probably 10 times, 100 times more humiliating than that loss, because at least in that loss, he was more competitive. In this loss, he didn't even get a chance to get into the fight. He got completely destroyed in the first round. And not only that, he got destroyed by a guy who looks like he's 60 years old. He's not like he's a young, in his prime champion, like a complete monster. Like, if he got knocked out like that by like a Sabril Mateus, who everyone sees as this boogeyman monster, who's completely running through the light welterweight division, completely destroying everyone, making everyone quit, it will still be humiliating, but it wouldn't be as humiliating. But he lost to a guy that he was supposed to beat. Like, he had every advantage going into this fight, and he got completely destroyed. So, in my opinion, in a way, Ohara Davies is fortunate because he's got himself in a position where he's made a lot of good money for his skill level. Like, this is a guy that's not even a you can say based on this performance that he's not even fringe world level. Like, he's somewhat there, but he's probably not likely to win a world title based on what we saw last night. Maybe he can completely revamp and change his career and he goes on to win a world title in the future, but it's based on what we saw so far. He's not on that level, but he still managed to make good paydays. So when he fought Josh Taylor, he made a few couple $100,000. Obviously, when he fought Lewis Ritson, that was a good win for him. He made a couple $100,000. I mean, when he fought Derry Matthews, he probably made good money. When he fought Jack Catterall, I think he made good money. And obviously on this stage, with his new deal with I think he's with Golden Boy and he's on the zone and such, he probably made good money. So he's probably cleared a bit of good money. For the level that he's on, he's made good money in his career. But I just don't know where he can go from here. I think he needs to fall back. I think he's good on a domestic level, but I think I remember him saying that he struggles to travel in fights. So when he's fighting in London, in his comfort zone, he seems to fight well, but whenever he needs to travel to another opponent's backyard, like for example when he had to go to Scotland to fight Josh Taylor, or he had to go Las Vegas to fight Barroso, he just doesn't seem to perform. But that's the definition of being a world champion. If you want to be a world champion, you need to travel and take the title from the champion. That's what you got to do. You got to travel. You got like Mike Tyson, who went to Japan to fight Tokyo Douglas. You got Muhammad Ali, who went to Jamaica to fight in Zaire versus George Foreman and went to the Philippines to fight Joe Frazier. So that's the meaning of a world champion. You fight everywhere. You can't just be in your comfort zone and expect to call yourself a world champion. To be a world champion means you have to fight everywhere. And if you look at the best fighters, they generally travel well. Like Tyson Fury, he went to Germany and beat Vladimir Klitschko. He also went to America and beat Wilder. I know in his last performance against Francis Ngannou, he didn't look great, but generally speaking, he travels well. But I don't know what Ohara Davies does. Maybe he needs a new training setup, but I definitely think he needs to drop down a level. As for Barroso, I mean, somehow he's managed to salvage his career. He's won the interim title belt. And I think the way I see it, Rolly Romero is probably going to fight Ryan Garcia next. And the winner of that's going to have to fight this guy again. And let's be real, man, Rolly Romero struggled with him in their first fight. And I think I wouldn't bet against him against Ryan Garcia. Let's say Ryan Garcia wins the WBA title against Rolly Romero. If he was to fight this guy who holds the interim title, I think he will struggle against him. I mean, this guy just seems to have really good power. I mean, Rolly Romero's been in there with Gervonta Davis, and he's been in there with, obviously, Barroso, and he says Barroso actually hits harder than Gervonta Davis, and to some extent I believe him. I think Gervonta Davis is more of a guy that knocks you out based on catching you from punches you don't see, because he hits you at a funny angle and you just don't see the punch coming, so you get knocked out. He's more sharp than hard hitting. Don't get it twisted, he still hits hard, but he's more of a sharpshooter. But with this guy, he just seems to have pure concussive punching power. I mean, you just saw what he done to Ohara Davies, a fighter like 11 years younger than him. So he's a problem. He's an absolute problem. And the fact that he's in his 40s, mid-40s, and he's doing this much damage to the light welterweight division is astonishing. Because fighters from the lighter weights, they usually don't age well. But somehow this guy's managing to knock out fighters. Like, it's common for fighters in the higher weight classes to do well at an elderly age. For example, Bernard Hopkins, who went to the light heavyweight division, or George Foreman, who went to the heavyweight division, managed to win the title at 45. But usually the lighter weight fighters, just because of how much toll it takes on your body, they don't usually do well. But this guy's got real concussive punching power, and I think he's a problem for anyone. So tell me what you think. What do you think about Ohara Davies? Where does his career go from here? I think he needs to drop down a level, maybe go down to European level or British level or such, or just take a bit of a rest and just literally just nurse his wounds, and then obviously Barroso just needs to wait to see what happens. Maybe he's going to fight, get a rematch against Rolly Romero, or maybe he's going to fight. Maybe he's going to fight the winner of Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero when they win their title for the WBA title. So that would be great, actually. If he could get the winner of that and then get a Ryan Garcia fight, not Ryan Garcia, yeah. If Ryan Garcia beats Rolly Romero and Barroso can get a fight against Ryan Garcia because he's got the interim belt, that'll be a good send off for his career. If he can somehow beat him, it'll be great. But he'll get a good payday for that, and that'll be a good way for him to end his career, winning the WBA title against Ryan Garcia, who's seen as a big star. I think he could win the fight because of his concussive power. Tell me what you think below. What do you think should happen? And where do you think Barroso goes from here? And tell me what happens at OHARA Davies. Tell me what you think, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace.